All right, the recording has started, and this is the June 16th, 2022 Crossplane community meeting. The agenda document is open, and the link to it can be found in the Zoom chat. So the document is still open for folks to add any items that they want to go over here. So we'll start as usual with the Milestone Checkup and making progress on the next releases and versions of Crossplane. So since the last community meeting, we haven't needed to do any patch releases. So we don't have any specific releases to call out here in this section. We are in the middle of the 1.9 release cycle, I think kind of almost, directly right in the middle of it. So we haven't done any patches in the past 2 weeks, or no bugs came up since the patches we were talking about in the last community meeting. And then we're about a month left, halfway through the cycle here until the 1.9 release. So you can follow along with the scheduled releases on the release calendar and the links here found in the agenda document. But we're working towards the middle of July, about 1 month from now, to target the 1.9 release. We have, the 1.9 project board and roadmap that I think is mostly up to date. I think there's probably some efforts from folks in the community that are not yet captured on the 1.9 project board. So if folks are working on something and want to include that in the project, just go ahead and ping me, and I'll be happy to add it to the project if that may require like organizational permissions. So just ping me, and I'll be happy to add anything to the milestone that we're working on. The ones we just recently, Sergen wrapped up a couple of important features that are in the 1.9 timeframe here. There are these two in the done column. We'll go into some more details about those later on in the agenda, because I think they are somewhat important. So we'll get into that a little bit later. And then there is a community effort still that Max is driving, I believe, about patching from common data sources. That is that's in progress right now from both the design and API changes perspective, as well as the implementation. So that's going to require a bit of iteration to get the API to a spot that we are feeling good about getting it right on the first time here. Since we're extending any extensions to the Crossplane API as a 1.x mature project, we want to be very conscious about how we're extending the API, what changes we're making. We want to get it right. So definitely thank you for the efforts from Max, as well as the patience while we're working through and talking through the design there and getting it to a good place. If folks want to speak up now about efforts they're working on in 1.9, and then also if you want to pay me later, that's fine as well. Something I just thought of is, and we'll talk about this in more detail later on, but we do have we started some mentorship projects with the Linux Foundation just a couple of weeks ago, just very recently. So the efforts from our mentees of those projects, we should probably get those onto the 1.9 board also, so that we have some more visibility on those also. Cool. Anything that folks want to bring up now for 1.9 and Crossplane core functionality before we move on to providers? All right. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to providers then. So I think something definitely to call out here, and Zoom is once again in my way. So let me drag this to another screen, only for Zoom to move it back when it feels like it. So it's definitely something to call out here is the provider AWS release. Okay, there it is. The provider AWS release for 0.28 came out less than a week ago, but there has been a regression that was identified within that release that we are, that it's probably better, it's better to hold off from installing 0.28.0 until this regression is fixed. It has to do, here's the issue here. It has to do with the IAM user resource type. And there will be tags that continually get added in the reconcile loop to that IAM user and continues essentially duplicating them and growing that list of tags. So this is a regression that is, it's unfortunate. And, I think we should do maybe a bit of a postmortem on, reflection on how this regression or this behavior got introduced and what we can do as a community to prevent that from happening again in the future. But this is being worked on, I believe, right now. And, this will be patched in 0.28 in a .1 patch. And then once that is out, then and tested a little bit, then we'll go ahead and make a recommendation for provider AWS users to move to the new .28 release. Any other color or details to add about that? I haven't been actively working or involved in that release or that particular issue there, but that's my summary of an understanding of it. But if anybody wants to add more details, do feel free. All right. Any other releases of providers to call out or talk about right now? All right. Then I wanted to call out one new provider that is being donated to the Crossplane Contrib organization. So there's a provider jet for pallets that is pretty much in its entirety. So it had been worked on in another organization. And then now this in its entirety is being submitted to Crossplane Contrib in a new repository for provider jet pallets. So, mostly I took a review pass on this, and mostly this looks fairly complete for an initial implementation. I think there's just a couple things to work through in terms of the build and folder structure, et cetera. But basically, is this the right PR? I might have linked to the in a minute. Let me see if there is, I thought it was PR1. Oh, it looks like this got closed and reopened. Okay, I see. I think I see what's going on there. But yeah, so not a lot of deep implementation things to talk about with this provider in terms of the feedback, but more build and structural stuff. So yeah, we'll be driving this to its first release as the latest new provider within the ecosystem in the Crossplane Contrib org. Yuri, do you want to catch us up on some of these provider Terraform things? I think you added these to the agenda. Is that right, Yuri?
Yeah, sure. So just to discuss them because they were mentioned in a couple of previous meetings. So I started to work today on the single signal handling issue. Basically, the problem is that like whenever we update a provider Terraform with a new version, the pods are getting deleted, and if Terraform is active within a pod at that point in time, then the state is getting locked, right? So, and the observing workspace in a unusable state out of that. So I started to dig in, and I realized that actually we are setting the lock on every reconciliation loop. And then I came to realizations that actually Terraform plan actively locking the state even on like on Terraform plan read-only operation, right? So this is very simple PR, which is a disable locking mechanism for read-only plan, and there are like upstream Terraform discussions linked in this PR. But the thing is that like it should mitigate most of the cases of the lock now. So like I remember when I was working for some experiments on a provider Terraform, and I was updating it, I was surprised why it's getting locked because I wasn't updating any associated CRDs, workspace CRDs. So now I understand why, because the plan was locking as well. So basically every cycle it was locked, and obviously spawned like in most cases of pod recreation, this kind of unusable state. After this PR, it will be better. And yeah, next step will be advanced signal handling. which will also properly catch the case when actually Terraform applies running within a pod. So like it should wait for a Terraform application, but it's going to be more tricky because there are multiple layers in it, like a grace period injection and actual handling. So, but that's for this one diff plan, and Bob, active contributor to provider Terraform, he was very interested in this one. Unfortunately, he's not. He didn't join today, but I already synced with him asynchronously in Slack, and we discussed the proposal. So it's another link in the document. Jared, can you please open it? Yeah, so that's the one. So the start. Yeah, thank you. So standard Terraform, provider Terraform debugging. So like it's pretty tricky from a consumption standpoint and development standpoint as well, because currently it exposes like in KTS event stream only an error, but this is it just like it's standard error part. It's very short chunk of what is happening, and the whole context is hidden. So very frequently, to actually understand what is happening on Terraform level, you need to get into the pod, find the workspace with associated unique identifier, copy it because you need to catch the state and not so like avoid the situation when you're into the workspace and controller will recreate it on next reconciliation loop, all that stuff, and then manually run Terraform from the within the pod and understand what is happening. As you can imagine, it's totally inconvenient and brittle scenario, but currently it's the only way to get there, to actually isolate the problem and potential the situation, what is happening with your Terraform code within a controller. So that's why we discussed what we can do. Bob faces the same problem as me. So potentially we can extend the workspace CRD status and include the log there. And it might be ugly, but we at least like set the directions there, and it's obviously open to the discussion. If you guys, if you have any experience like with us and ideas where to put this kind of logs, it's basically like this, Terraform CLI stream log, but it can be maybe generic case when you're dealing with CLI tables within the controllers. I definitely would appreciate any ideas. So I've seen this stuff before when I was in my previous company. We were using a Rancher experimental Terraform controller to drive the Terraform Kubernetes way. It never reached any like maturity, but they were like, to not expose like a huge stream of plain text, they at least like encode it into base 64 and put it into the part of the CRD status. So we might try the same approach. So that's update on a provider Terraform stuff.
Cool, Yuri. Thanks for sharing some of those details and updates on that particular provider and the collaboration that's going on in that repo also.
Thanks a lot.
All right. So then I think that's everything for providers section. Unless folks want to add anything else, feel free to interrupt me, but I'll keep moving on here. So the just a quick couple of links from recent content like blogs, presentations, live streams, etc. So there's a couple of summaries that came out of KubeCon EU that were mentioned in Crossplane. So I put links to both of those ones in there. So you can catch up with everything that was going on in Valencia, as well as some of the details about Crossplane as well that is coming from the greater ecosystem. And then Victor was speaking at GitOps Days recently. Victor, was there a recording that came out of that presentation that's available? If there's a better link than this one here?
It's probably on YouTube. Everything ends up on YouTube. I just need to, I'll try to find it and ping you later.
Awesome. That sounds good, Victor, because I'm sure that would be very interesting for folks to watch and get access to if it's been published. So thanks for following up with that. All right, sweet. So yeah, and if anybody else has other content or blogs or anything that they've published, feel free to add it to the agenda doc as a link here as well, so it's got more visibility. All right, so I was talking earlier about the mentorship programs that we have started that are underway for the Linux Foundation's mentor program for the summer term here. So we're in week 2 right now. And so we're starting to work with the mentees and get into some of the foundational knowledge and background prerequisite stuff so they can then start on the projects that they're going to be working on. So Rahika and Parul are the two mentees that are working on Crossplane this summer. I think Rahika's here at the community meeting. So Rahika, if you want to say hi to folks in the community here, you're more than welcome to do so and introduce yourself a little bit if you want to do that. Oh, maybe we don't have audio right now for Rahika, but both she and Pro will be around the community this whole summer as a start. We're hoping that they'll stick around in the community and be contributing after that as well, of course. But yeah, hopefully everyone will make them feel welcome and pitch in as well for helping them get acclimated and growing within the Crossplane project too. So the two projects here they're both QA sort of focused, like quality bars for pull requests essentially. So Rivka is working on one where if there's breaking changes in a CRD, pull request will notify you of that, so we can take the appropriate steps to do like release notes or maybe redesign the API or do something so that we can deal with breaking changes in CRDs and make sure that we're doing the right steps there if they come up. So some automation around that will be very, very helpful. And then Parul is working on making sure that package pulls from private registries will continue working and are high quality. We've had a couple of things over the past, I don't know, maybe a year or so, where private pulls in certain environments stopped working or had some potential regressions in them for various reasons. So staying on top of that scenario as consistently working and being verified will be really helpful for the community as well. A lot of people rely on private registries to store their platform configurations and custom providers and all that sort of stuff. So it is definitely an important scenario that we want to make sure stays at high quality. So welcome to the community, Rika and Parul, for both of your efforts that you're going to be helping out the project with this summer, and we're definitely excited to have you. The KubeCon call for proposals for North America for Detroit was completed. I think it was right after the last community meeting. So I know that I've heard of a number of different proposals that were submitted by folks within the Crossplane ecosystem. If you have one that you want to share with people, feel free to add to the agenda document a link to your proposal right here so that we can check it out and get excited about it together. If you want to keep that to yourself until you find out if you're accepted or not, that's totally reasonable. And we're looking forward to hearing about all the different talks that gets accepted or will be part of KubeCon North America. I think the latest number that I heard about KubeCon Europe and Valencia, like including more indirect mentions and references and dives into Crossplane. The last number I heard that there was 14 different talks and tracks, et cetera, that we're talking about Crossplane in Valencia. So that's a whole lot of stuff going on for Crossplane, and then demonstrating that we're continuing to grow and expand their breadth and our scope within the ecosystem. So hoping to do something similar for KubeCon North America, and happy to give people a chance to share what they're working on and what they're submitting for that too. So feel free to add that to the agenda document if you want to also. All right, so let's move on then to, looks like we added something to the agenda here for provider AWS issue. I don't know if I am super familiar with this one. So let's see. And Manu, it looks like you went ahead and added this here. This is looks like it's from you on the agenda and here as well. Do you want to give a little quick background context on this one here?
Yeah. So I have a customer who is trying to deploy AWS resources into the China region, and some of the basic ones like S3 and all that works. But if you are trying to use like a global scoped the resources like IAM or Route 53, they don't work, at least until that the PR was merged. And then after that PR was merged, we can actually get it to deploy using the configuration specified in this comment that I made. So my question, I don't know if I guess like my question to the community is this the expected configuration that we want people in China to use? So if people in China wants to use or deploy like IAM resources, right? They'll have to use this type of configuration, right? Whereas in global just AWS partitions, you don't have to do that. So I just want to kind of get clarification on that. Is this expected? Is this something that we should change? Any opinions?
Yeah, really good question, Wenwu, and I appreciate the example that you're providing here as well to give more context about a solution that seems to be working, but you're wanting broader guidance of if this is the recommended approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd open the floor to folks to see if they have some opinions on if this is the recommended approach or not here. Maybe Aaron, maybe Victor, and plenty of other folks here. Does anyone have an opinion that they want to share about this approach?
The only recent things that when I faced the AWS partition was during stabilization of one of the resources. And in an associated Terraform example, the partition was read by a data resource. So just a high-level idea that when we implement observe-only resources, it might contribute to the overall solution of this problem. So we could retrieve this partition dynamically.
Yeah, so I was looking at the code as well, and you can actually do it, but within the code, it's actually setting the region explicitly, and that's where the problem actually is coming in. So I can make a PR and try to make it so that this doesn't happen, but I guess I don't know what the intention of these these changes are made, right? Like do we want non-AWS partition resources to be handled in natively, or do we want to have this endpoint configuration required for these resources?
Go ahead, Yuri.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand properly. Does it mean that currently the standard AWS partition is hard-coded?
Yeah, partition is there is a global constant that's being used to provide these IAM and Route 53 resources.
Got it.
Yeah, so this brings up a pretty good question, Manabu, and I don't have myself an answer about if there is a better way to do this than what you're doing right now. So yeah, hopefully we can follow up on this issue with folks that might be more familiar with it to see if there's deeper or further recommendations with this, or if what you've got here is the recommended approach for right now.
Okay. Do you know have names of people that I can maybe kind of take it offline with?
Yeah, Christopher Har here.
Okay.
So Harkree would be probably a good resource that could help out with that. I bet.
Okay, I'll reach out.
Yeah, and feel free to just mention him on this issue so we can have that visible for other folks too.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I wanted to dive in also to a little bit of functionality that was added to Crossplane Core recently. So Sergen, if you are online, if you want to give us a quick overview of some of this functionality that was in fairly high demand from folks that were running kind of blocked on adopting Crossplane without this functionality. So yeah, Sergen, if you want to share about what you've done here with this PR, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. Actually, this PR addresses two issues in the cross-plane runtime. The one of them is the related to circular dependencies. When we try to use the references, we cannot. The creation fails when using the having circular dependencies using these references. And another issue is that the resolving the references only once. This PR addresses them by adding new reference resolution and resolve policies. And the resolve policies are the always and if not present, and it's related to, as you can think that the resolving the references only once. If you set the always policy for the references, this reference will be resolved for every reconcile loop. And the resolution policy is related with the circular dependency issue, and we have two choices, and one of them is the required and the another one is the optional. If the required choice is chosen, which means that the reconcile will fail if the reference cannot be resolved. This is actually the current behavior, and we are adding a new API, and if this optional choice will be selected, that means this reference will be try to resolving, and however, if we cannot do this, this reconciliation loop will be continued. So this is the idea of this PR, and it provides a new API for the references. These APIs are about the policies. And yeah, you can also find a few examples about the PR description. How can we use them, and how can we apply and resolve issues?
Yeah, thanks for those details, Sergen. You know, as I was saying, I think this is really important because it was, you know, quite literally blocking some people from being able to proceed with adopting Crossplane and be using it successfully. So I'm glad we got this fix in. And so something to note too is that this would need to be consumed from various providers if they want to pick up this functionality. So Sergen has a PR here, which basically gets that latest fix that he put into Crossplane runtime, and then generates it essentially adds these policies in this functionality to all the existing resources. So that's an explicit thing that would need to be done for the providers that want to consume this functionality. Sergen, can you comment on any sort of the like API compatibility or upgrade or any changes that need to be consumers need to be aware of with these additional changes? There's no compatibility like breaking changes, but this is not a breaking change, right? It's additive.
Yes. Actually, yes, we are protecting the current behavior if the user will not set this policy. So this is not breaking change, as you said that. If user tries to use the policies again, this will only change the resolution and resolve policies. So the general pipeline will not be affected again. However, and also will not be affected the current behavior of these reconcile loops and resources.
Awesome, great. So there's not a say provider AWS picks up. Oops, wrong one. Provider AWS picks up this this new functionality, and then the next release goes out. Folks won't need to take any steps to deal with this change. Like they will if they want to use the policy, they'll need to add some configuration to do that. But otherwise, though, it should be no issues with upgrading or migrating, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for that consideration and making sure that was the case.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually tested this. Like I built my own, Crossplane and provider AWS and everything, and it works really well. So thank you so much for this.
Awesome. That's great validation, Mohammed. Thanks for mentioning that also. So it's already baking, it sounds like, before the PR is merged. Fantastic. Sweet. So Jesse added a link here to the proposal that he submitted to KubeCon North America, so folks can check that out. Some exciting stuff on supply chain verification for packages and such. So thanks for adding that, Jesse. Hopefully that one gets selected and we can hear that talk in Detroit.
Yeah, let's hope.
Right on. Cool. So I think that's everything that was on the agenda so far. Does anybody want to bring up anything else then before we adjourn for the week? Okay, going last chance here. All right. Well, then we can go ahead and adjourn here. Thanks everybody for coming to discuss all the various topics on the agenda, and we'll keep working towards the 1.9 release and getting those other providers released also. And good to see everybody today.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
all. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.